All right, guys, welcome back to the pod. 4th of July night of 2023. I'm kind of winding down to get ready to go to bed, but I wanted to talk about this. It's going to be a spoiler alert, by the way. Spoiler alert for Skinwalker Ranch, that show on History Channel. We have it recording every week, and so every so often I'll just binge watch a few episodes at a time. I think the most recent one I watched was season 4, episode 10, and I found it really interesting because it touched on some of the curiosities that I have. So you're gonna hear a lot of fireworks, guys. Sorry, I tried to wait to record because they're not supposed to keep going, but this whole city has been rumbling all day long. It sounds like thunder. It sounded like thunder all day long. People would maybe say a war zone. I don't know. I would say that, but luckily I've never been in a war zone, but it sounds like what I would imagine a war zone to sound like. It almost reminds me of when Baghdad was being bombed, and I was scared watching that on the television, but I couldn't take my eyes off of it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And just how it sounded in the background, but on the television. But it's crazy. It's been all day in LA. It's just all day long. You just hear this constant rumbling in the background. It really sounds like thunder. But the background for me it's mild enough that I think I could sleep through it. It's just the ones that are like right near me, because we have neighbors that, from about June, they start setting off fireworks like almost 1 a night or something. Pretty late at night too. So yeah, sorry for that noise, and I don't know if the air quality has suffered at all. I just feel like my throat is very, I don't know why I'm kind of clearing my throat a lot, but who knows. But yeah, so I don't really know what I can't really speak to what is going on in Skinwalker Ranch. I have my own speculations, and I'll talk about those, but I don't really know exactly at all. So I have a couple theories. One theory so far would be, with my limited knowledge, that what they're picking up might be some type of wormhole or portal, and maybe there's some kind of control center inside the mesa. So basically, for people who maybe have never watched Skinwalker Ranch, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, there's a creepy story about those types. A lot of the indigenous people don't even really talk about them, and so I don't really like saying the name of the show, so we'll just call them those types of otherworldly beings. And they basically go around the, I guess the Navajo and the Utes in ancient history had some kind of a, I don't know what you call it, it's a I don't know if it was a disagreement or something that happened where I believe it was the Utes that cursed that land in Utah, and therefore it became a like there's all kinds of things going on there. So basically with this show you have a lot of historical and ancient traditional indigenous beliefs and experiences around things that are like supernatural to the area. So there's a lot of this like supernatural like kind of belief in like spirits. It seems like the vibe is majority that they're bad spirits, they're not positive. But then at the same time you see this other extraterrestrial type of phenomena going around, as well as what could potentially be like US military or some covert type of securing of the area. So I think those are the three main things that you kind of see. So a lot of times in the show, the researchers who are doing all these different scientific experiments of various types of, using the naked eye, as well as different types of machinery and testing types of like devices. Like, for example, there's this area that they call the triangle, and there's something in the sky in that area where they identify we get it, where they identify this I cannot think with all that going on. They identify that there's something in the air. I don't know how many feet up, but I think it's about a mile up, but I could be wrong. In the sky, where there seems to be, they call it like the blob or something like that. And so there's something in the sky in this area where they call it kind of like the triangle. There's like these three little roads that make this little triangle, and then there's also like a helipad somewhere, I think it's near that area. And then there's the mesa, which is this big kind of mountain, like kind of hill, a mesa. Basically it's like a hill that's flat on top for the most part. And mesa, table. And they have identified that in this mesa there's potentially some type of dome-shaped metallic gigantic object in the mesa. And on top of the mesa there is this spiral shaped like area where there's these gigantic kind of like big stones that were laid down by the indigenous people. And per traditional teachings, that area where that spiral is on top of the mesa is an area that in ancient times people would say that this area is where maybe spirits would come and go, things would happen. And so these guys, they've been 4 seasons in to doing all kinds of experiments, shooting rockets up in the air, trying to identify what is being captured by the rockets, any type of information that they see. A lot of the times when they shoot off these rockets, you see orbs appear, you see the rockets exploding in weird places. Mind you, these are people who are used to shooting off rockets. This is something they're familiar with. Now, rockets do explode, and I'm not talking like gigantic rockets. These are like the types of rockets you can build for like science experiments. And so they're usually like about a yard long or so. They're not like absolutely gigantic. But sometimes they're carrying different, like they have balloons and stuff that might be carrying some type of devices that can monitor certain things like pressure, temperature, different things that you just can't see with your eye, right? And they collect all this data, and I'm missing stuff, but I mean, that's why I say it's a spoiler. But if you want to watch the show, watch the show. But I want to give enough background information for people who have never watched the show. So basically, this whole show is they're trying to figure out why, even today, there's still all kinds of odd stuff happening on this ranch. You know, they noticed, like, unfortunate cattle mutilations, animals behaving weirdly. They see, you know, UFOs on a very routine basis, or whatever they're called now, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, or whatever it is. There's stuff flying around out there, broad daylight. This isn't even all at night. This is like middle of the day, multiple people around witnessing something, and they'll blast off a rocket to try to test, you know, what happens. Sometimes they're just seeing what happens. They notice that there's these frequencies, they kind of change just almost most times when they have this rocket shooting off. Every now and then there's like a helicopter that's unidentified, that's maybe military or government flying around, and they're not able to track these like planes or other, like, you know, identifiable aircraft. They're not able to track it. Like, usually when people are flying, they're supposed to be traceable. You're not supposed to like legally be able to just like fly around without having some type of something on where other devices can trace you. But they see them because this is broad daylight a lot of times. But a lot of times when they shoot off a rocket, or when they do other types of experiments, with those experiments come all kinds of other, you know, almost immediate issues, you know, either people feeling physically ill, getting headaches, having to go to the doctor with unexplained, you know, physical issues that were dangerous, people, you know, just having like odd experiences, cell phones scrambling, calling people, you know, like there was this one time where they showed one guy's phone, and it was just going through his whole phone book trying to like call different people and typing in like tons and tons of numbers, and like it's like, what the heck is going on? And it's like a lot of times their devices shut down, the computers shut off, it stops recording data. I mean, all this kind of stuff just starts happening, and they do it so much that it's not just like coincidence. I feel like almost every, at least with the experiments that they show us, that they've recorded, you know, you see some other kind of thing happen. So sometimes they'll blast off a rocket, and then they'll see a flash of light in the background, or they'll see, you know, something flying around, you know, and these are just things that are happening in the middle of the day. It's not like, sometimes it's at night too, but it's like often in the middle of the day as well. And so it's not like it's hidden. It's like if one event happens, there's some other reaction that they say the ranch reacts. It reacts. And so they try to be respectful as they can, but they, have this recent experiment that really caught my attention. I mean, the show kind of scares me, but I watch it because I like it. But I mean, because I have beliefs that lie in some realm with some of this stuff, I, do kind of have an interest, and I find it, basically one of my theories is there are multiple things going on at the same time. One theory is maybe a cohesive story that the government knows that these types of areas exist in places on Earth, and perhaps there is a type of portal that was already there, because there's definitely something in the sky in that triangle area that they can't see, but it seems like, once they get stuff up there, sometimes it's revealing that there's something there that they can't penetrate. And I don't know what that is, but it seems like it's something cloaked, potentially some type of cloaked thing. I don't know any type of cloaking technology. I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. But it seems like there's something there. And there are multiple episodes that show that, once things that are electronic get near it, or laser pointers bend at the area in the sky, or, there's just some weird types of stuff that, even when they flew like a helicopter above it and they were trying to like drop certain things like through the area, it turned out that I don't know if it was the GPS data that got scrambled or something. Like, there's something there, and I don't know what it would be, but it could potentially be a wormhole, and there could potentially be a wormhole on the mesa, or through the mesa, because it seems like whenever there's experiments in the area, things start popping out of nowhere, but within their sight. It's not like they're doing an experiment right here and then there's something like way somewhere else like 20, 30, 40 minutes later. It's like, no, they blast off this rocket. On their way to go collect the rocket, they start seeing like an orb or like a UFO or something, just like broad daylight. It just goes by in passing like nothing ever happened, and then that's it. And so it seems like, this might be a portal, or there might just be a lot of things kind of hanging out up there, because they don't seem frightened. They don't seem like they're afraid of showing themselves. They're not hiding. They're just flying around up there. And it seems to usually coincide with these experiments, right? So they're aware, whatever it is that's flying around out there is aware that there are humans that are routinely doing experiments for at least like almost 4 years now, it seems like. So, I kind of think maybe there's a wormhole. I don't know. I really don't know the difference between, spirits, demons, extraterrestrials. I don't really know how to distinguish. I think it might be what your own belief is, personally, to differentiate between those types of beings. Because, I know what I was taught, because I was raised in like a strict Christian religion, and they teach about demons and Satan, and that there's evil angels, which are demons, and that's Satan's kind of crew, and then you're taught that there's angels and God and spirits of some form, at least the Holy Spirit, but other spirits in some form, and usually other spirits are considered not good unless there's some kind of guardian angel or something. But usually you're not taught that other spirits outside of the Holy Spirit are like spirits to be like dealing with. Like, usually the Christian religion has a very closed-minded viewpoint about pretty much everything that's not exactly as the Bible explains it in the Christian tradition, not the Jewish tradition, and the Christian tradition, which is different. I mean, Jewish people don't have Lucifer, they don't have the Holy Spirit like that, they don't have a lot of things that Christians have, which is odd, but we don't need to go into that here. But you would think that because Christianity came out of Judaism that it would be the same thing, but Christianity definitely has a lot of pagan influence as well. And when I say pagan, I'm not crapping on pagan people. I know that they do exist in modern day, and I do study a bit about Norse paganism, and I respect it. I don't understand it because I wasn't raised to study it. I was taught to stay away, which means, of course, I will go closer to it and try to understand it better. So, I don't tend to stay away from things very easily, but usually when I get kind of a sense or that's why I kind of don't really mess with this type of stuff too much. But I do think it's important to learn about. So with my comprehensive theory, I think there could potentially be a combination of things. Like, I don't see that there would be any reason for the Ute and the Navajo nations to be lying about the curse that happened where one tribe cursed the other, and since that time there were these types of beings coming about. Now, I don't know how wormholes and portals exist, but one theory I do have, there's no grounding for this theory whatsoever, but it's just something that comes to my mind because in studying, human existence on Earth, a lot of times we are taught that it's linear, and then there's a lot of other research that teaches, the ones who were teaching all that are lying because they want to make this nice linear story about basically like how the Europeans, that type of race of people was dominating everybody and stuff. Like, it just kind of fits with the theme that's like, oh, there were all these other ancient people and then these other, indigenous groups, and, some groups became more advanced first and then went and dominated all these other people. So we're kind of taught that, there's kind of this underlying theme in modern human history teaching that, the European type of people became modern and advanced faster than everybody else for the most part, and then went and took over all these nations, or had a role in taking over all these other indigenous nations of people through genocide and slavery and all these other types of things that people don't want to talk about. But usually if you just pull way back and look at what human existence and theories look like, we're usually taught we all came from Africa, and then there's maybe like 5 major races of people, and then from there, you see different groups rising up out of these indigenous populations and becoming more advanced with their modern technology. Now, just because somebody has some electronics and all kinds of devices, I don't think that makes them more advanced. And the reason why I say that is because I think there's a lot of power in a lot of ancient traditions. There's a lot of stuff we don't even understand. I mean, we can't even figure out how the heck the pyramids got where they are and how they were built and what they were for. It's like, okay, yeah, we can call ourselves modern, but we look at something like that that's a structure built out of earth, and we can't even figure it out. Even with all the modern technology we have, we can only speculate. I mean, I'm not saying that people who research it aren't very wise and intelligent. I'm pretty sure they are, but there's still not like one definitive answer, right? And so, you know, I am kind of more with the theory that, you know, human history didn't advance in a very linear way. And so I mention all that to say, if that theory is accurate, then technically there could have been beings from other worlds already living here even before the Navajo and the Utes were even in what is now the United States. You know, even when they were on their indigenous land in North America, however they got to their lands, and they all have their origin stories, and they all have stories of like a creator who made them and different things like that. Like most races, most tribes, most groups of people have a story, an origin story, whether they believe it or not. We're usually taught that something or someone created them, or created everything, or they came out of some type of already living, existing thing. Like for the Navajo, I believe it's a bamboo shoot. There are other groups of people who believe that they came out of like a different type of animal or a different type of, you know, there was some other being that came from some other place that they call their god. And, you know, it makes me wonder. I'm like, it sounds to me like there were other beings already here. Like if there was already some type of vegetation for things, people, humans, beings to be evolving out of, if there were already beings who were creating other like beings which became humans that they were creating, I don't know why those themes would be so common if there was no truth to it, because almost every culture has that idea. Modern, you know, science is the only, you know, place where you really see people saying like, oh no, it was like the universe and there was this big bang. But still, even in those theories with the Darwinian type of thinking of evolution, humans are still coming out of something living, right? There's nobody coming out of just like nothing. You know, there's no group of people who traces their origins to machinery, you know, to like some type of mechanical device building them or whatever. It's either, you know, you evolved out of some other living thing, or you were created by some being. And there aren't that many stories in between that. And you know, it wasn't until more modern times that people started thinking that, you know, that humans weren't really created by any kind of being, but also, you know, still technically humans evolved out of something that already lived. And for there to have been a big bang, there would have had to already have been laws of physics and elements that already existed somehow. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say about any of that kind of stuff. But I mean, so I hope I'm not talking in circles. I hope I'm making sense. But please bear with me. If I need to make this into 6 episodes, I might do that. But So okay, you have so you have the you know, I believe that potentially there isn't like a linear progression of technology. I think there's like a combination of linear and, you know, higher technology that already existed. Now, I'm not trying to say one's better than the other, right? But we can take, for example, there's already uncontacted tribes that still exist on the planet. I don't think they need to be contacted. I think they're fine where they are. I think people should leave them the heck alone. I'm fascinated in them, and I like to consume content about these groups that get found, but I also feel deeply sorry for them, and I know that their life isn't always made better. It seems like in a way it's made better because there are a lot of people like loggers and other types of people that are siphoning, you know, different resources from these indigenous groups' land, and it's making it so they can't have, you know, pure animals or water or food or safety or shelter because there's all these other people running around in their land killing them basically and polluting their stuff and making it so that they get diseases and harm coming onto them. And then someone from like, you know, a modern day tradition comes and, you know, creates some kind of organization that helps to save them, and usually has like anthropologists involved to try to make it so that some of these groups don't become extinct because of the modern advances, if you want to call it that, that are going through with all these companies and killing all these different groups of people. So I don't really like that they get contacted, but it's like sometimes it seems like that's what helps them to be able to stay alive, unfortunately. But you know, when you look at, you know, like modern, you know, developed nations with modern technology, you know, they sometimes come in contact with people who are indigenous groups who have never been contacted, who maybe don't really know about what is going on, you know, like they see maybe planes or helicopters every so often flying over the Amazon or something, and they maybe know what it is, maybe they don't. Who knows what they think it is, you know. I've heard of people that, you know, less than 100 years ago, there was a group of people that got contacted, and they showed these people a picture, a photograph of, I guess, people, and you know, this indigenous group did not understand. You know, they looked at the back of the picture and they saw there's nothing there, so they were just so confused and frightened by it and thought it was some kind of witchcraft. Like they didn't have any idea of like what this could be. Like I'm looking at a sheet of paper at pictures of human beings, and then I look and there's nothing there. So people got killed in that process, on all sides, but you know, because there was just a misunderstanding of like, what is this? You know, they didn't know what it was, and they're like, you know, we need to get rid of this, you know, we need to get rid of these people. And I'm not blaming them, I'm just saying, the reason why I'm mentioning all of this, between like modern technological groups of people and indigenous people who do have technology, but it's not modern technology, it's ancient technology. I can't say one's better or worse than the other. But you know, there are times when groups who are from a modern culture contact groups from an indigenous culture, right? That's not linear. Like, we still have that situation happening where there's people who live in a land in a world that's different from other people living on the same earth, living life completely differently, and their lives haven't crossed enough to really fully understand one another. Like, when modern society people come across other people from indigenous uncontacted societies, it's like they have trouble finding a language, that they can have in common. They have trouble understanding what's going on. They might not understand their beliefs. They might not fully understand, like, okay, where did they originate from? Like, what groups of people are they kind of related to? There's a lot that's not known, right? And, they're living, off the land, usually without any modern technology. And then there's people with modern technology who are like, okay, we know they're humans, but we can't even communicate with them. We don't even know anybody who can. And so it's like, you think with all of our bells and whistles and cars and Teslas and whatnot, and we don't even know. It's like there's people living out there that, we may never know that they existed, or we may find the remains and ruins and be like, who was here? Like, how many times do you hear that? Like, who lived here? Who were these people? How did they build this stuff? What was going on? But then we always assume, oh, like, they're ancient and like indigenous, ancient, old traditions that were less advanced than ours. And it's like, okay, if they were so much less advanced, how come we don't know what they were doing, right? So I say all that because, I think that also happens in our modern society. We have our modern, what we call modern, technologically advanced, and then there's already beings that have been living here for ages before we came here, possibly. They were here before us. Maybe some of them even had a hand in creating some of these other groups that say that they had a god creating them. Maybe it was aliens creating some other groups of people. Some groups of people, all groups of people, I don't know. Like, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, there's clearly something going on, whether it's just government made, military, odd looking, fast moving, crafts, or if it's actually beings that aren't from here. And if there are actually portals and wormholes where there's beings coming and going, I think that's what could be happening, is there's this kind of parallel going on, first of all, where there's all these different technologies meeting. So in this episode, season 4, episode 10, you have there's some indigenous culture and traditions, and knowledge and insight about the spiral being, some type of a portal, right? So let's assume that's true. Let's just assume it's true, because that was there before most of us came to what is now North America. That idea already existed. They already were witnessing something. There's something that made them say this. They didn't just assume, like, oh, we'll just say there was a portal here and put some rocks up on the thing. It's like, no, they knew something was there for a reason, because they witnessed things, and so they put things there, right? And then they go on, right? They move on, and So what I think is happening is there's the part of, modern technological advancement, in a way advancement that I am aware of from, how I was raised, living in a city like Los Angeles. It's like it's really hard to avoid technology like that. But then also, I am a person who has, my own indigenous roots, right? Very recent indigenous roots, not like thousands of years ago, like, about one generation past my parents' generation. Maybe I would call that kind of like a hybrid indigenous, and then my great grandparents generation, my grandparents generation, yeah, would have been kind of like a hybrid, and then my great grandparents generation would have been the generation that pretty much got, overtaken by groups of people who made them try to become more Western and modern. And so there's a lot that we've also lost. And so I don't really know what to say with all that. But, some of us live in multiple worlds like that. So even though, indigenous American, like North American groups of people, I'm not like so in touch with that part of my culture, but it's definitely in my blood line. And not that long ago also, I do find myself gravitating towards, wanting to know a lot about it. So I do study about it. And, so I can kind of see the value in that, in the value in kind of where I'm living in this current space, and then the value of, all these other unexplainable technological things that are advanced past what we currently say we understand. But if I even think about in my lifetime, I'm pushing 40, and in my lifetime I went from living in an environment where we had computers because my dad was like into modern technology. So we always had computers in our house. We didn't always have internet, but we had computers. We had internet before a lot of people did. We had cell phones before a lot of people did. And so I remember, a time before I was like 16 where one of my classmates was like, "You don't have an email address?" Like, because he was trying to like email me, and I was like, "I don't have one." But this is before MySpace, before Facebook, before smartphones, before the iPod. It was before all of that, and we would, barely be able to like keep in touch with each other without calling each other on the house phone, and we couldn't use the internet and the house phone at the same time because we had dial-up. So it was like we went from that to like, I can't even imagine not having an email address. I can't even imagine not having a smartphone. I can't even imagine not having apps. I can't imagine just not having my life be pretty digital. And at one point in time in school, we used to actually go to the library physically in person. We used to actually type out papers on typewriters or computers to get extra credit. It wasn't mandatory to have or know how to even use a computer. I learned how to type on a typewriter. My typing class started with a typewriter. And then, because they thought we'd get too distracted by all the buttons and all the, like, how to turn it off and on and stuff, they're like, you learn how to type first and use a typewriter. Like, I don't know anybody who learns how to use a typewriter anymore. Like, not unless you're doing it for some type of artistic, creative reason. I mean, I do think they're valuable, of course, but it's like, you know, nobody really, like, if you're going to learn how to type, you might as well just learn how to type on a computer, and, you know, usually. But, yeah, we learned how to type on a typewriter. It's like, there's stuff like that where you're just like, what? So even in my own lifetime, I've seen how things have advanced very quickly. And I'm pretty sure what's released to society isn't even all of the capabilities of what is available, because we don't get every single thing released to us, right? So oh man, I shouldn't have drank that Coca-Cola today. I only drank half of it and I think I'm getting a headache. But yeah, so when it comes to that kind of stuff, you know, I can see all these different angles where it's like, you know, we already don't live in a linear time, because we have indigenous groups of people. We have people who would call themselves modern day people with their modern day technology, and then there's something more advanced than us out there roaming the skies that knows that we exist, or at least, you know, on that ranch they know that those people exist, but you know, other people see those types of phenomena all over the place too. And so it's like we have like 3 different layers of things going on, and I'm not trying to judge and say, like, you know, it's hard for me to get out from saying like advanced, because it's like maybe it's touching a level of things that we never, within our human history as we know it, we never knew existed. So that's what I'm calling advanced, when there's something that comes up that seems like this is newer than all the other stuff. But just because it's newer doesn't mean that it's better or that it's more important. And I know for a fact that, you know, when we lose cultures, we lose information, we lose data, we lose importance. And I think, you know, with all the genocides of so many indigenous cultures, we've lost so much. But one thing I've always kind of gravitated towards is music, right? So basically, my theory kind of revolves around, you know, I believe that the spiral on the mesa is realistically some type of a portal that can be engaged with, because these indigenous groups mentioned that, you know, they have traditions of engaging with these portals through sound. And so on the episode, you know, the Americans tested, you know, sound waves. I think they found a 292 hertz sound wave frequency, that they played a tone at that, you know, amount of hertz, and it, you know, made some kind of like sound, the right word? It made a sound. It made some kind of there was some kind of reaction when the sound was played. And then they got a group of, you know, traditional musicians. They're indigenous. They do drumming and chanting. I don't know if it's the same exact type of drumming and chanting that is played in powwows, but that's the closest thing it reminds me of. This group of people is of multiple tribes. It's not just one specific tribe. And so they began to play their drums in an area that was strategic for where the scientists felt these sounds were gonna, create some kind of a response. And so they started playing. I don't know how many times they played, but they played, let's call it 3 or 4 songs. And one of the songs they played without the chanting, without the singing. And, they started noticing something. And the computers, they had cameras focused in that area that were like heat sensor types of devices. I don't know if it was cameras or what type of device it was pointing, and you could see the heat sensor. So you could see where the drummers were. You could see the different the different mapping of the heat of the people while they were drumming. You could see the sticks. Anything closer to purple was cold. And, so they started, and anything closer to yellow was like hotter. And so mostly everything looked orange, and every now and then you would see something that was like purple kind of like appearing. And they noticed that, there was something right around where one of the drummers said that they kept hearing as if something was walking, but you can't see it. And then, they verified this by, looking at the footage. They could reverse the heat sensor footage to rewind it and see where the heat sensors were changing. And you could see, around the time that they started mentioning this, that they were hearing something, because these guys communicate by walkie-talkies and stuff. They went looking for it. Nobody found anything, but they noticed it, and they cut off that part of the experiment at that point. But when they also went back, they noticed 2 kind of beams or orbs go into the mesa in that same spiral spot around the same time that these guys were chanting and doing the singing and the drumming. And so it's like, okay, they've already proven that sound, that drumming, the different types of things can bring these things, to attention. And how or why, I don't know. And so, and just, them stopping, kind of shows also that, they a lot of the indigenous people who live around the area are aware of, these traditional teachings about these types of other worldly beings, and they kind of stay away from even talking about it. They stay away from the ideas about it. But let's assume that everything they're saying is true, that sound has something to do with these portals, and then there's clearly stuff going on where there's stuff that seems to be appearing when there's not just sound, but rockets, and when they're trying to fly around in helicopters and things, there's stuff that's kind of UFO looking that's popping out. So it's kind of like, why are all these things popping out? And not only are they popping out when there's these experiments, but there's stuff going on unprovoked. It's like There's a lot of stuff that's just going on. Like, they've got cameras set up all over this place, and there's stuff that they find when they're just like out and about patrolling or just like observing the land, and they find like some burned area or some animal carcass, or like some animal got eaten or killed, or some animal got attacked, or like there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. And they'll bring out like animal specialists and stuff too, that like they're like, we don't understand, like this wasn't attacked by like an animal or something like that. It's kind of like, or like there was one frame where they saw, during the time that one of these cows was getting, was, I guess, starting to die or something, there was some kind of a thing up in the sky, like above that area. And it's kind of like, they capture it because they have everything on video, so they can kind of go back and forth and like see like what appears where. So some of it they're not even catching in real time, and then they go back and they're like, oh look, there's like this or that, and to have multiple episodes worth of this stuff with multiple companies of people and indigenous groups of people, not just the Utes or the Navajos, but multiple groups of people coming around, all saying the same thing, that, they're witnessing this stuff, and then they just go back about their lives. They leave the area, they leave the ranch, and they go back to work where they're at, or they go back to live where they're at, and that kind of stuff. And so, that's kind of my theory about what's happening. But, like, I really do think, at the very least, like, I really do think that there is, like, a lot of power in shamanic type of drumming, like the types of drumming that, shamans from different types of cultures teach about, like Celtic drumming, even the type of drumming that you hear in a lot of like indigenous culture type of drumming in North America, or like almost every culture has like drumming or some kind of percussion, and like I even remember, like I even know, like even when I went to a soccer game, like like 2 years ago now, I went to this soccer game, and it was like after work, like 7:30 at night or something after work, and I was kind of stressed, but I was like, okay, it's right down the street, I'll just go. But by the time it was coming up, I kind of was not as interested in it, because I was like, and it kind of like made me kind of zone out a little bit, and I can be kind of the same like at raves or bars or clubs, like when the music is just like that consistent bass to it, like it kind of like zones me in, and I do listen to a lot of different types of rhythmic and like percussive type of music to relax. I've talked about it before. I like these, like, I guess they're called Native American, like bird singing, bird songs. I do watch a lot of powwows on powwows.com, on YouTube. I try to catch them, live on the weekends, or whichever the most recent one was. I try to catch them. So when they had those drummers come out, I'm very familiar with that kind of style of drumming. I just don't really know exactly like the exact details. Like, is that the same type of stuff, that the same type of music that they play in powwows, or was it like something completely different? Like, there's a lot of stuff I just don't know. Like even with music from Mexico, I don't really know exactly the differences. Like I can tell it's in Spanish, and I can tell some of the music that I know, like, it's kind of funny. I like norteño, a lot of people, I guess it's like dorky that you're not supposed to like it, but I like it. Like, I don't know any better, so I'm like, I think it sounds fun, you know. But I couldn't really tell you the difference between that and mariachi and banda. Like, they're all different, but like, I don't really know how they're different, but I kind of know, but not very particularly. But there's music like that, right? And then it's like, you know, when I hear the type of music at powwows, I'm like, you know, it's not fully something that I understand, but you know, I'm getting more and more familiar with it because I'm listening to it on a very regular basis for the last like few years or so. And so, like, I really enjoy it, but I know for a fact that it does have an effect on me in a positive way. And so, you know, there is just definitely stuff that I've experienced where it makes me wonder, you know, yeah, I don't really think it's just a coincidence, you know, because like I literally use it as like a coping mechanism, like a coping strategy, you know, because I definitely have pretty bad insomnia and have for years. And, you know, listening to that type of music at night actually helps me go to sleep, like right away almost, compared to most things. Compared to even like melatonin. Like, I actually feel better in the morning. I actually feel more relaxed at night. It's not just like a forced, like something trying to like knock me out. Like, I feel myself easing into sleep and my mind just kind of like relaxing. It definitely does something to me, and that's you know, something that I've always kind of tried to pay attention to is just when I connect with things in nature, what does it actually do, right? So drumming is something I've pretty much always noticed since I was a child. I've noticed how drums have affected me positively. I'm the same with the ocean, with water. The way that water affects me positively. Just the sounds of it, the feel of it, you know, especially when hot or cold, honestly, like it has different, it can produce like different effects for me, but like I've definitely noticed that I have different experiences, with different, natural things, you know, sound waves sound waves from drumming is natural. That's nature. You know, the sound of rain, that's nature. You know, the feel of hot water, the sound of ocean water, or the sound of a stream, you know, that's nature. That's all water, you know. I mean, I honestly can't see myself living outside of Southern California just because I need to be able to go to the beach easily, and I need to be able to go to the mountains to go to the snow when it actually does snow. And so those are two things that it's like, why, you know, like, why would I, you know, be so drawn towards water or beats or things like, not beats like the food, but like beats, like, you know, beats of music, like why, you know? I think that's just something that just like I naturally gravitate towards. And even fire, you know, even when I don't know how old I was when I started realizing how much I liked fire. There used to be like a joke in like junior high and like high school, at the religious school I went to, that like people would call me and my brother pyros. Like, we weren't like burning actual things, but we would always like carry lighters and little like fake types of Zippos around, and we would just like light stuff and play. We kind of played with fire a little bit, And so I wasn't really scared of it, like we used to have I'm just like remembering this. We used to have fireworks that we would get, like not fireworks, like firecrackers, like little things. They're not really legal out here anyways, but you could still kind of get them. So we used to get, like, I think from the ice cream truck. I think there were like these, like, I think it was the ice cream truck or something. There was some place that we would get firecrackers. There were places we would get firecrackers. There were places we would get, lighters. And we would just kind of play with lighters and stuff. And, like, hairspray and, like, different kind of flammable things. We weren't, I would say that is dangerous, but we weren't dangerous with it. Like, we weren't pointing it at each other, trying to hurt each other or anything, but we were, we kind of would carry lighters around and just kind of play with them and stuff. And, so I got really comfortable with fire. And, later on, I kind of noticed, at night, it's kind of nice, I always found lighting incense to be kind of nice. I always found, lighting candles to be kind of relaxing and nice, just for like calming and stuff like that. Like, it's just so interesting. And it's like, you would think, all the things I've tried for like different types of medicines, of things that people have like given me, of all the things that I've found the most beneficial have been candles. Not in any specific order, but yeah, definitely cannabis, candles. I'll put CBD in there as well. Drumming and water, like water sounds or water movement, like feeling water temperatures. Air as well. I like having the fan on. I like having the windows open. Most people who know me, that I like to wear shorts because I like the feel of air. It's like all these things I find very calming, and there's not really much more that I need too much just to be able to make sure I'm feeling calmer. So the reason why I say all that is because it's like, I wish, I'm slowly starting to delve into it a little bit, so I don't really want to be like too I hate saying things like woo-woo, but it's like, I think there's a spiritual realm, whatever you want to call it. It may or may not be beings. It may be energies. I don't really know what it is, but whatever it is, I know that it connects with humans through these different forms of nature. And honestly, to me, it's been better for me than any other type of medicine that I've been given by anybody. Drugs, medicine, anything. And so that's why it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, like modern, more advanced technology. It's like, is it really that advanced? If all I need to do is like light a candle and like be around some, listen to some ocean waves, or like put on something where I can hear like some beats or some, rhythmic drumming, and just like be able to finally relax and go to bed. It's like, is that, not advanced? To me, it's advanced. Like, it all has to do with, energy waves, really. It's all like energy waves. Drumming is, sound, which is a wave. Everything we sense is a wave. All of our senses are through waves. And so it's like, that's all we really need, is something that's vibrational. Because a wave is, a form of a vibration. And so whatever we see visibly, like for me, there's something kinder and nicer about candlelight than there is about light bulbs and ceiling lights. There's something nice about, I mean, I live in an area where I can, not always comfortably, but I can technically sleep with the window open every night all year long. It will get cold in the winter, and I will get rain in my room eventually, but it's like, technically I could do it, and I probably wouldn't get like pneumonia or anything. I would probably be fine, honestly, as long as I stayed warm. But I like the air. I like the sunrise, there's so many things that I'm just like, these things work for me, and, yeah, like, maybe I'm talking about like 2 completely different episodes here, or 3 different episodes, I feel like, that I could record off of these topics, but it's like, I really do feel like, we're missing out on things when we're so disconnected from nature. I remember when I would go on mission trips in Mexico, starting in grade 8, I think it was 7 or 8, I can't remember, but we would go and spend like 10 days with kids from other places, sometimes in Texas, sometimes in Mexico. Usually the goal was to get to Mexico, but we would stop in Texas usually at Valley Grande Academy and get some other kids that were going with us, and we would take some of them with us because it was a religious boarding school. I don't know if it still exists, but we had a connection with them, and we would go get some of the kids and then go to Mexico and stay for maybe like a week in Mexico or something. And it was usually like a 10-day trip or so. And, I remember back then we would complain, I can't bring my Discman or Walkman, or, I can't bring my own music, and I can't like have like a Game Boy or whatever. And we would go and we would just have the best time. And, like, we would just be talking to people and meeting people and seeing the environment. And I think basically it was like a religious control thing, which is why they didn't want us to bring devices, because they're like, oh, it's a spiritual trip. And in my head, I was always like, like, it's kind of BS. But in a way, it was a spiritual trip to be disconnected from that type of technology. It actually helped. Like, now when I look at it, I mean, maybe not from like that religion particularly necessarily, I'm not knocking it, I'm just saying, like, we were disconnected from it, and it helped. It helped with our connections easily. Like, we were stuck on planes and in vans with each other for like days on end, hours on end, in tents together, like working together all day. It was definitely a community feel, and we weren't distracted by anything. Like, we didn't have access really to like news, or we weren't like texting anybody. We didn't even have cell phones really back then. And like, and yeah, there was all that. But, yeah, I just find it kind of fascinating. Because we're always taught, that, modern is always better. And it's like, I do notice in my life, I love it, obviously, because I love techie stuff. I mean, I'm trying to get a techie job, but it's like, part of me is like, I'm fascinated by the learning aspects of it, just because it's something new and different and exciting to me. But, there is a lot of ancient stuff that's really cool and helpful, and there's a lot of other worldly stuff that's very kind of interesting. It creeps me out. Maybe it's just because I have a bias, because I was taught to be afraid of that kind of stuff, but I still delve into it. But yeah, Usually, I've talked about it before, but when I get that sense to kind of like back off a little bit, I've been trying lately to kind of back off a little bit, because I'm like, that doesn't need to be, maybe that's just not for me. Specifically, it's not for me. But then I found all these other things that are for me. And so, yeah, but I think that there is definitely a science to all these other things. It's just like people in modern days are like, we don't need to care about, nature, the environment, all those kind of things, and we can just rely on only the modern tools that we've created recently and just do away with all the other stuff, and soon we'll be living in spacesuits and floating around and all this kind of stuff. And it's like somehow that's supposed to be way better than everything we're leaving behind. And it's kind of like, I don't know, because I've noticed when my life is simple and I'm not, so disconnected from all those other things I mentioned, and when I routinely have those other things in my life, even if it's not a religious or spiritual method, I'm just kind of like playing it just to go to bed or something, and it helps a lot, like going to the beach helps a lot, going up to the mountain, snowboarding, or not even snowboarding, and just being in that kind of snow weather, in the snow, it helps a lot, like, I think as city dwellers, we kind of have it hard, because it's like your mental health definitely gets like attacked if you just don't connect with nature. Like, you're not gonna feel good. That's just how it is. Like, you almost can't, make everything synthetic. I feel like, at least for me, I'm kind of forced to always go back to nature. Even if I want to ignore it, it's like I eventually have to go to it, So, I don't know, guys. Maybe I went off on a tangent and went off topic, but that's kind of my theory around this whole thing. And kind of my own background of current beliefs of what I kind of think about it in general, how I found that some aspects of things beneficial, how I know that it does do something changing to me within, I'd say, 30 minutes or less. I notice it does something to me. And so, I'm talking about drumming, candles, ocean wave sounds, being in the ocean, being in a jacuzzi or a sauna or a steam room or a hot shower or a cold pool or the cold ocean, or, just lighting incense, or, listening to drumming or bird songs, or, different types of things like that. I mean, that's just a whole list of things that I can do pretty easily on an almost regular basis. And most of it, I don't need any supplies. Like incense, you have to eventually get more or make more. Candles are the same. You have to get them or make them. But all these other areas, of things that I can do, I've noticed they help me more than most things. And to think that there are cultures out there that engage with this type of thing in nature on a almost daily basis for multiple hours per day, I mean, I would think that they would have a lot of health benefits from these types of things. And I wouldn't doubt that they have other types of benefits and powerful qualities to them that have to do with other energies out there, that kind of connect with those energies, or other energies are kind of like gravitating towards it for whatever reason they need, that's possibly what's happening. I mean, if me, as just like this human who's clueless, just like notices that when I listen to certain stuff I feel nice, you know, it's like maybe, you know, there are other technologically advanced societies or beings or groups of people who have learned how to use these types of things for energy sources or for some type of other type of, I don't know, maybe there's a technology in them, because I think there is. I just don't know what to call it because I wasn't raised around talking about that kind of stuff. You know, I was raised around talking about the Bible and then science. And so I can talk about the Bible and I can talk about science until I'm blue in the face. I can talk more about the Bible than about mostly almost anything else. And or weed, you know. I think I'm pretty well versed with weed, but I can talk about these things in pretty good detail, and just the way that I can discuss those things, you know. You know, that culture, you know, the Christian culture, kind of takes out a lot of things. Where it's like, you know, you don't really see too much that connection with nature in Christianity so much. Like when you're reading the Bible and stuff, it's not quite there in a lot of ways. I think the way that you do see it is, you know, when it comes to things like prayer and faith and healing, there is something to it where there is something energetic or spiritual that the Christian religion knew about that, you know, was relevant for healing. At least Jesus knew about it. The disciples learned about it through Jesus, and they taught others about it as well. So we don't really know what that is. There is some speculation out there about, you know, cannabis oil being used. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know how to verify it or not. But like CBD oil or something like that being used by Jesus. Not that he was smoking it or whatever, but, you know, that it was something he used for healing. I really don't know. Like, there's a lot that I'm like, I don't know what to think about some of this stuff. The theories are out there, but it is pretty interesting how the Christian religion isn't very similar to a lot of indigenous religions. It's kind of a more modern religious take, and it has been modernized a lot. So it's really hard for me to find overlap. Like, even the church I was raised in taught about, like, the evils of drums and stuff like that. The evils of meditation, the evils of yoga, which are all things that are scientifically proven to be helpful for people's health a lot of the times. And so it's kind of like, sometimes I wonder what these religions are teaching. It's like, You know, there's certain things that I'm like, if I wouldn't have ventured out to find those things, I feel like I would have been at a loss. I'm not saying I haven't had, you know, experiences with prayer that have been valuable, because I definitely have had those as well. But I'd say those types of practices like prayer, eating healthy, you know, having a sense of community, and all the other things about nature that I've mentioned, about like natural types of things to just do to relax and de-stress and unwind. Those are all things that I can find naturally. I can find them other ways too, but it's like a lot of those other ways have side effects or cost a lot of money. You know, it's like it does help just to kind of, you know, try out some of the just natural methods and see if it helps. And yeah, this is like super lengthy, but a lot of food for thought. I don't really know what I think. I don't think the season's even over. Maybe it is, but yeah. Well, with that, I'm done talking. I've been talking a while. Thanks for listening.